What do you do when the person you trust the most is also the one who's never there? It was a Thursday night, the kind that feels lonelier than a Monday. Rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers, and the television flickered in front of me, forgotten. I was alone, again. Eric was out of town for work, like he often was, and the silence of our home felt heavier than usual. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps at the door. When I opened it, there he was, Adam, my neighbor, with wet hair and a nervous smile. "Hey," he said. "You looked like you could use some company." That moment, those 7 words, shifted something in me. I didn't know it then, but letting him in wasn't just opening the door. It was opening a chapter one would come to regret more deeply than I ever imagined. And my name is Claire. I'm 34, a freelance editor, and I've been married to Eric for just over 6 years. From the outside, our life looks enviable. 2-story home with white shutters, a small garden I pretend to maintain, and a Labrador named Daisy who loves everyone more than she loves us. But real life doesn't always match the picture. Not when one half of the couple is hardly ever home. Eric works in corporate consulting, glamorous in theory, exhausting in practice. When we first married, I admired his ambition. He was the kind of man who made plans, who moved through the world with purpose. But that purpose came with a price. His job had him traveling more often than not. At first, I didn't mind. I liked the quiet, the independence. I told myself I'd use the time to write, to focus on my work. But slowly, that independence began to curdle into isolation. Nights stretched long. I'd leave lamps on in every room just to make the house feel less empty. I'd pour a glass of wine, open a book, and end up reading the same paragraph 5 times, distracted by the ache in my chest that I couldn't name. And that's where Adam came in. He and his wife, Sarah, moved in next door about 2 years ago. A sweet couple, young and full of hope. I liked Sarah immediately. Warm smile, always waving, always chatting about her herb garden or their new baby. But that light dimmed quickly. I started to notice arguments, subtle at first, then louder. I'd hear muffled yelling through their kitchen window, sometimes the crash of something thrown. Then one day, she was just gone. Adam never talked about it, and I never asked. But over time, we began to talk more. Short chats across our fences became long conversations on the front steps. He had a way of listening that made me feel visible. And when you go long enough feeling like a ghost in your own home, that kind of attention feels like oxygen. He had sad eyes. The kind that carried stories he hadn't told anyone. There was no flirting, no inappropriate comments, at least, not at first. Just the comfort of another lonely person recognizing the loneliness in me. I didn't see it coming. Maybe I didn't want it. It started with the smallest of gestures. Adam began stopping by with little things. Leftover soup he said he'd made too much of, a package accidentally delivered to his porch, or just to borrow a tool he didn't really need. I'd invite him in, just for a minute. And it always stayed innocent. At first. One rainy afternoon, he helped me bring in groceries. The moment stretched when our hands brushed reaching for the same bag. I looked up, and something in his gaze made my heart skip. Not because he was trying to seduce me, but because for the first time in weeks, I felt wanted. That night, I sat in bed scrolling through photos of Eric and me from years ago. On the beach in Oregon, at our wedding, laughing with champagne flutes in hand. I stared at them, willing the warmth I once felt to come back. But all I could feel was distance. A void he never seemed to notice. The next evening, Adam knocked again. I didn't even hesitate before opening the door. He held a bottle of red wine, lifting it slightly like a peace offering. "Bad day," he said. "Mine too," I replied, stepping aside. We sat at the kitchen table, the wine between us. The storm outside pressed against the windows, and the room glowed with soft yellow light. He told me about a fight with Sarah before she left, how he couldn't remember what it was even about, only how her face looked when she walked out. "You ever wonder if some people just aren't meant to be happy?" he asked. I shook my head. "I think some people just forget how." He looked at me. "Do you feel forgotten?" The question stunned me. It wasn't invasive, it was understanding. Painfully accurate. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump rise in my throat. I don't know what I feel anymore, I whispered. There was a silence that followed, thick and electric. I should have stood up, changed the subject. But instead, I let the silence stretch. His hand slid across the table, fingers grazing mine. I didn't move. I shouldn't be here, he said quietly. I know, I said. But I didn't tell him to go. That moment hung in the air like an inhale that never turned into an exhale. I felt myself splitting. One version of me wanted to run, to protect what little was left of my marriage. The other just wanted to feel something again. I saw him again a few nights later. Eric had called earlier from a hotel room in Dallas. I listened to him talk about client meetings while I stared at the rain on the window. He said he missed me, that he'd make it up to me when he got back. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I believed him anymore. That was the night it happened. Adam came over after dark, hoodie-soaked, hair clinging to his forehead. I just needed to see someone who doesn't look at me like I'm a mistake, he said. I opened the door wider. The electricity between us was impossible to ignore this time. He stepped in and shut the door behind him, the latch clicking like a warning I didn't heed. We stood in the living room, the space between us vanishing in slow, inevitable inches. Are you sure? He asked, voice low. No, I said. But I'm tired of being unsure about everything. When he kissed me, it wasn't like in the movies. There was no music, no slow fade to black. It was messy, desperate, real. My hands trembled as they reached for his hoodie. My breath hitched as he pulled mine over my head. The couch creaked beneath us. Our skin was cold from the rain, but the heat between us was undeniable. For a brief moment, I let go. Of guilt. Of logic. Of everything I thought I knew. But in the quiet that followed, as we lay tangled and breathless, reality began to creep back in. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't look at myself. I don't think I can do this again, I said softly. I know, he replied. Me neither. But even as he left, I wasn't sure I believed either of us. I thought it would end there, that we'd both return to our lives, guilty but unchanged, the memory packed away in a box neither of us would dare reopen. But life has a cruel way of testing the lies we tell ourselves. 2 weeks passed. Eric came home, arms full of airport gifts, smelling faintly of travel and cologne. He kissed me on the cheek like nothing had shifted. Maybe for him, nothing had. But I couldn't stop hearing Adam's voice in the back of my mind or feeling the phantom warmth of his touch. I was a stranger in my own skin. One afternoon, I saw Adam in the driveway. He didn't wave. Just kept walking, head down, headphones in. The silence between us had returned, but now it screamed. That night, I found Eric in his office, his laptop open, brows furrowed. He didn't look up when I stepped in. Can we talk? I asked. Yeah, 1 sec, his voice trailed off as he clicked something closed. But it was too late. I'd seen it. An email. A name I didn't recognize. The phrase "miss you already" burned in the subject line like a flare. My stomach dropped. What was that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Claire, it's not, it's just work. He stood, hands raised like I was a wild animal he didn't want to spook. You're lying. My chest tightened. How long? He paused. Just long enough. A few months. It didn't mean anything. The air left the room. I sat down on the edge of the desk, the wood cool against my palms. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the man I thought I'd been trying to hold on to and realized he'd already let go. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I didn't want to hurt you. The irony was so sharp, I laughed. A short, bitter sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. I guess we're both guilty then, I said, before I could stop myself. His head snapped up. What does that mean? The words spilled out before I could weigh them. There was someone else. Once. It happened. It's over. Eric's face drained of color. You cheated on me. You cheated first. I didn't no you knew. But I felt it. I said, finally letting the heat rise in my voice. Every time you didn't call. Every time you flew off to another city like this life you built didn't even need me in it. I felt it, Eric. I just didn't want to believe it. He stood there, stunned. Silent. We were two people with our arms full of broken things, not knowing what to save and what to throw away. The truth didn't make anything easier. It didn't absolve us. It just leveled the playing field. I wasn't the only villain anymore, but I wasn't a victim either. We were both just flawed, lonely people who drifted too far apart to find each other again. I think we both stopped being honest a long time ago, I said quietly. He didn't argue. And that hurt more than anything. Eric and I didn't separate right away. We floated in that uncomfortable in-between space for a while. Two people occupying the same house, but different emotional universes. We tried therapy. We sat on that leather couch in silence, answering questions like strangers trying to win back points on a quiz we hadn't studied for. Eventually, we stopped trying. Not out of malice, but out of quiet acceptance. Some things don't break with a bang, they dissolve with a sigh. One crisp autumn morning, he packed a suitcase and kissed my forehead before he left. I watched him drive away without tears. Just stillness. Adam sold his house a few months later. I never saw him again. No dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation. Just a moving truck and an empty porch. Part of me wanted to stop him, ask him if it ever meant something more, but the wiser part of me knew we were never supposed to be anything beyond what we were. Two lost people who found each other at the wrong time, in the wrong way. I've learned a lot since then. Infidelity isn't always about sex. Sometimes, it's about silence. About the slow erosion of presence. The missed calls. The distracted eyes. The way two people can sleep in the same bed every night and still not touch each other's lives. People ask me if I regret what I did. And I do. Deeply. But I also understand it now in a way I didn't then. I wasn't looking to be unfaithful. I was just aching to feel seen. And when that ache goes unanswered long enough, it starts making choices for you. There's no neat ending to this story. Just lessons, scattered like broken glass, reflecting different truths depending on where you stand. Sometimes, the worst decisions come from the loneliest places. And sometimes, the hardest forgiveness is the kind you owe yourself.